there's so many more teachers that are we are like, oh, there's this group of people that are like, there's a whole bunch of teachers that are trying to make your kids trans. There's so many more teachers that are against it. There's so many more parents that are against it. There's but
the Department of Education and the teachers unions are in favor of it.
But my issue is, and this is not an accusation towards you individually nor you, but kind of into a general group of people that play the victim. And you're not the victim, right? These people that are like, oh, poor us, you're making our kids trans. No, we're not. We're the minority population, and we're not. And these teachers that you keep bringing up, in my opinion, they're not actually LGBTQ.
Right.
And like, if you,
They're
not. That's actually the crazy one. I didn't buy that book.
We call them, they're called awfuls.
Like, oh God.
Affluent white female liberals.
Okay,
I do think there's a lot of really, I just want to say this.
Probably on camera too.
I do think there's a lot of great school staff and teachers that are not doing this.
Right.
And I think that we need those voices, but from the school staff that I know, especially because the teachers unions are so loud with some of this, I think they're intimidated to speak up, and we need those voices to say, hey, I'm seeing something, saying something.
Do you want to address that?
Well, I was just going to say, like, the only thing I would say though is that who else is super loud is, and I don't even like using this word because I feel like it's so out of context. Like that, the word bigoted really bugs me now because now it's like you say anything and it's like bigoted, right? But like the actual dictionary definition of the word bigoted, bigoted people are also very, very loud. No matter what I do, they're loud as hell.
Well, which dictionary definition are you referring to?
Let's actually pull it up. I want to see, right?
Because the principal definition is someone intolerant of another person's beliefs or
there
opinions.
You go, right? So beliefs and opinions, right? So bigot, somewhat intolerant of a person's belief and opinion. Let's go with, and I'm allowed to say this, right? Like TikTok, for example, right? If you check out their Instagram page, they say, we want to do a pride collaboration, right? I do a pride collaboration, teaching pride in the classroom. What does it look like, right? And I'm like, whoa, teaching pride in the classroom. I'm a learning specialist. Well, like, what do you mean by that, right? And they're like, well, whatever you do for pride lessons. And I'm like, well, this is the closest thing I do to pride lessons. And it's literally having a student draw something on the front of their binder. And it could be who they are, it could be how they feel, it could be what they like to do. And that's pretty much as close to a pride lesson as I give. Or where I have a student draw their family and then a student draw another family that looks different. But people are calling me, you're indoctrinating kids.
Have you ever been to a pride? You've been to a pride event, right?
I've been to most of them actually, yeah.
Where is there, you're from California, do you typically go to like California Pride?
Oh, San Francisco Pride all the way, let's go.
Is it child appropriate?
That's a really great question. Have you been to San Francisco Pride before?
Not San Francisco, I've been to LA, Chicago.
I adore San Francisco Pride.
Is it appropriate for children?
That is, I'll get there because I have to answer your question honestly. And I know people that work for San Francisco Pride, and I have gone every single year. In fact, my mom's used to take me when I was a kid. Oh my God, indoctrinating. It is different now. It is very, very different. And in my opinion, San Francisco Pride needs to have different sections. And if you actually went to San Francisco Pride, you would be fascinated by one of the organizations that you would actually type in, which is Gays Against Grooming, which is that idea of if pride events are pride events for kids, they need to have a certain level of appropriateness to them. And I agree with that. Because there are certain things that occur. Yep, right there. Like there are certain things at pride events that are not age appropriate for kids.
These are not that aren't even legal in many circumstances.
Yeah,
but are not they're not enforced.
1,000%.
Despite the fact that in West Virginia, for instance, it is overtly illegal to have child at a drag performance.
Right.
There's no law enforcement against it. But they do it in public.
Right.
And the police do literally nothing.
Well, this is what's fascinating to me is like, and I also want to get your opinion on this too, is like there's this weird false equivalence that is not real. Like this, to me, nope, I would not show my kids that. There's no way. My future kids could not see that. My students would not be allowed to see that. Absolutely freaking not. Are you kidding me?
How old were you when you went to your first Pride event?
Oh, I was like 4.
I was 10. How old are you now?
I'm 29.
Okay, I'm 37. So I don't know, whatever. You at a younger age went to a pride event. My mother would not let me. My mom would not let me go outside of our family. We had a coffee shop in North Halstead.
Right.
She told me to stay inside. I wasn't allowed to go outside during Pride.
And
at 10 years old.
Yeah, and
because they were naked men and women. Mm-hmm. They were performing overt sex acts and simulated sex acts.
Yeah.
And my whole life, that has always been the case.
Yeah.
So when that is the case in my life, basically 3 decades, that every pride I have ever been to is sexually explicit. When you then go to children and say, let's talk about pride, you can't have 3 decades of sexually explicit in public, overtly illegal, and then tell children, let's bring you into this.
Because they're inherently correlated in your mind. They're inherently correlated in your mind. Maybe they should be, but they're not correlated in mine. Right. And I know that's crazy to think about. And I was having this conversation.
It's not about whether it's in my mind inherently correlated. It's that if you say, let's have you talk about pride and let me teach you about pride. And
then pride events is right.
You are, this is why it's called grooming.
But this is not pride. That is not pride. That is a pride parade.
Right.
And that's different than what pride is, right? Pride is being who you are, in my opinion. That's being who you are, respecting everyone, understanding people look different. That's pride.
What is effectively happening is, whatever your intention may be,
right,
you are going to a child and saying, I would like to open this door to a world of inappropriate behaviors to you by introducing you to this concept.
Right.
And that's why people call it grooming.
Right.
So the misconception I would say with the left,
I'm starting to finally understand what people are like worried about. I don't agree with it, but I'm fully understanding the perspective because I didn't understand it to this extent. But sorry, just to clarify before you continue. Pride, to me, I'm thinking, oh, it's pronouns, it's accepting who you are, it's being kind to everyone regardless. But to you, teaching pride is inherently teaching pride parades, which is intentionally teaching this, which is sexual.
Not necessarily.
Right, but that's what I'm kind of hearing. Yeah.
It's all under the same umbrella with no pushback from the LGBT community, in fact, celebration of.
Gays Against Grooming.
Gays Against Groomers we're very familiar with, we're fans of, we're friends with.
There we go.
So this is why it's grooming. I'll break it down. I'll give you an example of traditional grooming.
Okay.
A man shows up, sees a teenage girl at the mall with her parents.
Right.
He walks up and says, I work for a modeling agency.
Right.
Your daughter is tall, is slim, could be one of these Victoria's Secret models. How would you like to be world famous, travel the world? Take my card, look at my website. If this is right for you and you think it's good for your kid, the father goes, wow, really? My daughter could be famous and be a star and be a model like on the TV. There's 2 potentialities in this scenario.
Yeah.
A legitimate modeling agent sees a teenage girl who could be a wonderful model and genuinely wants her to just do regular old modeling. Maybe it's even lifestyle. Lifestyle is when they wear overalls and they're like merchandising.
Or
he says, we're going to bring your daughter, come on down. And the father is there with the daughter as she does a normal photo shoot. And it seems all above board. They do this for a few weeks. Eventually, the father's like, you can go. We know what you're doing. I got to be at work.
Right. And
then the guy says, we're doing swimsuit today. A month later, he says, now we're doing lingerie. A month later,
we're doing nude.
That's grooming.
Right. 1,000%.
When something seemingly may be normal, but the person is being pulled in for the intent of putting them in a particular situation. This is the traditional grooming that most people know about, casting couch and things like this.
Right.
Now, the issue with pride is that there is no upper. With the modeling world, there is an upper level of legitimate above board modeling.
Right.
You can be a superstar. You could be on TV. They're not trying to get you to do porn.
Right.
With pride, the upper level is men are performing sex acts on each other in public and defended by the LGBT community.
I would never say that first of all, in my opinion, there's no levels of gayness, right? But I understand. I completely understand what you're saying.
What I'm saying is the 2 paths in terms of quote unquote modeling is the deviant of trying to trick a child or groom them into prostitution, or just being on the cover of a magazine.
Which is crazy, but yes.
The most pronounced experience of pride is, for 37 years I've been alive, from the 27 years since I have witnessed these, they are overtly sexual. North Halstead, Chicago. I'm told my whole life, love is love. I'm a little kid. My family's liberal, Democrat. And they said, we agree with gay marriage. We agree with all of this because people are allowed to love whoever they want. And then I said, how come the mannequins are giving each other blowjobs in full view of the public? What does that have to do with love? I'm like 10 years old and I'm like,
it's not.
They have penis and vagina, macaroni and cheese. It's not about love.
So
when you go to a child and say, I want you to entertain pride, and the public facing prominent community is overtly sexual, that's why people are calling it grooming.
Got it. Now here's the deal, right? And let's make sure like the microphone gets it. Like LGBTQIA were not pedophiles. That's a pedophile. There's a difference between a pedophile and someone gay.
Well,
and,
do you think these two men performing BDSM in public are pedophiles?
No, because they're clearly gay. They are gay. They're doing something. And here's where, and this I was so looking forward to like talking to you about, because I've heard some of like, and I wouldn't call them accusations, but like some statements made by you, right? Where that idea of like, if you do this, then therefore like you're a pedophile or you're against, da, 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 da. But it's like, they're not, they're gay. They're gay. There is unfortunately a misunderstanding though of what's appropriate to do around kids and what is not. And hear me out, like love to both of my moms, right? There was parts of Pride that I was not allowed to go to, right? As a kid, right? Because they were not appropriate. And I think there are parts of Pride that are appropriate for kids and parts of Pride that are not appropriate for kids, right? There was a Pride event, and you're going to literally like destroy me on this one because you're going to be mad. You're going to be mad too. There was a school district Pride event that we had, and I was like the person for it. I was like the spokesperson for it. And like, hear me out. It was a great event. It was a really great event. We had different booths, and the entire Pride event was be who you are. There was nothing sexual about it. We had an individual, I don't even know if I could say her name, if that's a good idea to say her name. We had an individual, she came, she told her story about like what it was like to transition, and I had to coach her a little bit, even though she was older than me and much more successful, about, you know what? You actually can't say that you were considering suicide in front of kids. You know what? You can't actually go through the medical procedure in front of kids. There is totally a way to make Pride child appropriate. And I respect your understanding that there are certain things that children should not see. And I understand your concern, both of your concerns. But it's possible. We can make Pride appropriate. We can.
If the only thing that existed in modeling was prostitution,
right?
That the supermodels we all know about are
all prostitutes.
All prostitutes.
Then you don't let your child model, right? And the same thing. I love your points. Right? Yes, right? And if it was only prostitution, there's no way your child should model, ever. And if being gay and being LGBTQIA was only about sex, then there's no way you would expose that to kids. And yet it's not always about sex. LGBTQIA actually isn't about sex. And I know that's ridiculous to consider, but I had this conversation with a friend the other day. LGBTQIA, gender identity, lesbian, gays, bisexuals, gender fluids, non-binary. Sex is actually a very small part of the equation.
But my point is, Pride events, I have never seen a public Pride event that was appropriate for children.
I'll invite you to mine next time. I'm totally messing with you. But look,
I'm not saying they don't exist. I say I've never seen one, because I'm sure